Chapter 11. Shonda. Shonda had the coffee ready when Deacon re-entered the kitchen. Worry lines creased his face, sending the fear tumbling through her body. If Deacon was worried, it had to be bad. "Find anything helpful?" she asked, placing a steaming mug in front of him. She placed 2 sugar packets down and then realized she didn't know if that's still how he drank his coffee. In fact, she couldn't believe she remembered how he drank it after all these years. Deacon shook his head as he tore one of the packets and dumped it in the coffee.
"Eric says there's no cameras around here to get a view of the car. Oh, he did ask for the name of Dante's school, though, since there should be some around it."
Shonda nodded. "It's Roosevelt, but I don't know if he should go back." She sank into the chair across from Deacon. "I hate the thought of sending him to school where I can't protect him. They didn't approach him today, but what if they try tomorrow?"
"Eric thinks we should get out of town for a while, and I think I agree. Do you have any sick leave at your work?"
Did she have sick leave? She never took a day off, so yeah, she was pretty sure there were days, if not weeks. "Unless they decide to take that from me as well, then yeah." Deacon said nothing about her sarcasm, but she figured he understood.
"Good. Call in sick tomorrow and then we'll leave town. You can contact someone in the next few days to put in your notice. You said you'll probably get fired tomorrow for not attending the therapy sessions, so let's just go now. Come back to Fire Beach with me and start over. I know you don't know the people there, but I have a large group of friends who would all watch out for us, for Dante."
Shonda stared across the table at Deacon. The strong man before her was so much like the man she'd loved, the one she'd thought was gone. But he was also different. He was driven, but not obsessed, chiseled, but not harsh. It would be so easy to go with him, to fall for him again, but was it the right decision? "Let me pray about it tonight." She didn't always have time for church with her schedule, but she'd made a conscious effort to have time for God from the day Dante was born. She'd been so struck that day by the horror of what she'd tried to do that she'd given her life to God as she'd laid in the hospital bed and stared at her son.
"I will too," Deacon said, "but I'd like for you guys to pack a bag in case we have to make a quick exit."
A quick exit. The words themselves were dull, harmless, but the connotation behind them chilled her to the core. The need for a quick exit would mean that someone was after them, or that something had happened, or was about to. "Okay, I'll go pack us both a bag and then I'll start dinner. Do you think you can keep Dante entertained?"
"Are you kidding? I'd love to hang out and get to know him."
Deacon's eyes danced, and a pang of guilt shot through her. She'd deprived him of so much. Both of them, really. Neither Deacon nor Dante could get those years back, but maybe they could have a relationship going forward. She stopped at Dante's room on the way to her own. "Dante, I need to start dinner. Why don't you take your game to the living room and show Mr. Deacon?" Dante groaned. "Aw, Mom, do I have to?" "Yes, you have to. He's a guest in this house, and since I'll be making dinner for everyone, you can at least talk to him." Dante rolled his eyes, but turned off his game and headed toward the living room. She wondered if his reaction to spending time with Deacon would be different if he knew Deacon was his father. A tiny voice whispered that she should tell him, but she couldn't. Not yet. She just needed him out of his room so she could grab some clothes for him. There was no need to scare him yet, and she would tell him when things calmed down a little. He was already dealing with too much change as it was. That's what she told herself. But inside, she had to admit that she was just being a coward. It had been her and Dante for years, and she was very afraid that when he learned about his father, that would change forever. No, she couldn't think about that. Wouldn't think about that. There were too many other things to worry about. After a final glance toward the living room to make sure he was occupied, she grabbed a few clothing items from his room before heading to hers and doing the same. She stuffed them into a bag along with an extra hairbrush, toothbrush, and other necessities, and then made her way to the kitchen to start dinner. The sun had barely sunk beneath the horizon, but Shonda couldn't shake the feeling of fear in her bones. Something was going to happen. She could feel it buzzing in the air like a static current. It lifted the fine hairs on the back of her neck and rolled around in her stomach like rocks. Still, she was determined to make dinner and get through the evening without incident. She moved around the kitchen, throwing ingredients together, her mind racing with possibilities. Would the people in the car try to get in the house? Would they lie in wait and grab them tomorrow? Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was her imagination playing tricks on her, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was lurking in the shadows, waiting, watching. The sound of something rustling outside the window made her freeze, her heart racing as she peered into the darkness, trying to make out a figure. But nothing was there. She let out a sigh of relief and began to chop the green peppers, her hands shaking slightly. She could hear Deacon and Dante in the living room, Dante telling him all about the game and the items he was trying to win. Though she was jealous of their time, it also gave her a modicum of peace. They were talking, like father and son, like nothing else was happening, like no one was after them. Shonda took a deep breath and tried to steady her nerves. She was still worried, but the conversation between Deacon and Dante was calming. She finished prepping the vegetables and put the chicken in the oven. She glanced out the window one last time and was surprised to see how dark it looked. Yes, it was getting later, but usually the streetlights lit up the area. Tonight, though, they didn't appear to be doing a very good job, as shadows filled the backyard. Just then, the sound of a branch breaking caught her attention and she screamed. Within seconds, Deacon was in the kitchen asking her what was wrong. She pointed out the window. "I heard something. It sounded like a branch breaking, and it's so dark outside. Why is it so dark outside?" Deacon peered out the window and then hurried to the living room. When he returned, his voice was stern. "The streetlights are out, and I don't think it's an accident. Grab your bags and some food. We're going now." It took only a moment for his words to register, and then Shonda grabbed a sack and began throwing packaged food in it. She didn't keep a lot in the house as she preferred to cook healthy dinners for Dante, but there were Pop-Tarts and granola bars for his lunch, as well as some protein bars for herself. All of them went into the sack. "Mom, what's happening?" Fear laced Dante's voice, making him sound younger than his 8 years. "Grab your game and your bear and throw them in the bag on my bed." "Why?" But before Shonda could respond, Deacon took over. He knelt down so he was at eye level with Dante and placed his hands on the boy's shoulders. "Do you know how your mom saw a crime a few weeks ago?" Dante nodded. "Well, they don't like that your mom tried to get the police involved. We think they might try to get in this house, so we're going to go somewhere safe. Can you be brave with us?" "Okay," Dante said, though his eyes remained large and fearful. "I'll even come with you," Deacon said, flashing her a tight smile before leading Dante back toward his room. Finished with the bag, Shonda grabbed a few bottles of water and threw them in too. When she reached the living room, Deacon was already there, her bag on his shoulder. Dante had his backpack on and a solid set to his shoulders, though she could still read the fear on his young face. "Shonda, before we go, you need to turn off your cell phone." "What? Why?" "Because I don't know if they're monitoring your cell phone, but I know they can't while it's off. You can bring it, but it has to stay off until all of this is cleared up. We'll get you a new one when we get to where we're going." Shonda nodded. That made sense, and she wasn't addicted to her phone anyway, like many of the younger employees she knew. But it felt weird to know she wouldn't have it for the foreseeable future. However, keeping Dante safe was more important. So she turned the phone off and shoved it in her pocket.
Good. Grab my bag, turn out the lights, and then open the door, Deacon said.
Won't they see us? Shonda asked, her nerves coiling into a tight ball in her stomach.
Maybe, but I'm hoping with the lights off in here and out there that we might be able to make it to the truck without drawing too much attention. The interior lights of the truck are going to clue them in one way or the other. I don't have a way to turn those off.
Right, but before we go, let's pray. She grabbed Dante's hand and placed her other hand on Deacon's arm and then asked the Lord for safety. The words didn't feel like enough, but they were all she had. Then she opened the door, and like thieves in the night, they hurried to the truck. She expected the sound of gunfire or for someone to attack her from behind, but they made it to the truck without incident. Did that mean the men had left, or were they just waiting for a better opportunity?